All right. Well, hello and welcome everyone to the AMP webinar today. We're so excited to be returning to hosting our webinars this fall and starting off with this great topic of natural supports and social snacking. And thank you for joining us today. Before we begin, I would just like to acknowledge the land that we're on. So, spanning generations, acknowledgement of the land is a traditional custom of Indigenous peoples when welcoming outsiders onto their land and into their homes. To build respectful relationships, acknowledging the land is an important part of reconciliation. In the spirit of respect, reciprocity, and truth, we acknowledge we are on and support mentoring for youth in the traditional territories across Alberta of the many First Nations from Treaty 6, 7, and 8, the Métis of the 8 Alberta settlements, and Inuit peoples whose footsteps have marked these lands for centuries. These lands are the traditional meeting grounds and homes for many Indigenous peoples for generations. We're grateful for the traditional knowledge keepers and elders who are still with us today and those who've gone before us. We are all treaty people, beneficiaries of the peace and prosperity the treaties brought, and committed also to working toward the equity and justice the treaties promised. Before we start, I'll just give a little intro to AMP and who we are. My name is Courtney Cox, and I'll be the moderator and host for today's webinar. I'm a project coordinator at AMP. I work on our MIAC project, which specifically focuses on providing mentoring opportunities for 16 to 24-year-old youth and young adults that are transitioning out of foster care. And I'm also joined today by Quentin, my colleague, and he is our communications and technology administrator. So he's our tech support today. If you have any concerns or tech questions at any point, just feel free to message Quentin in the chat. And for those of you who may be unfamiliar with the Alberta Mentoring Partnership, or AMP, we are a network of community mentoring agencies, government, and youth working together to raise the profile of mentoring in Alberta. We exist to help schools and mentoring agencies meet the needs of youth and young adults that they service. And AMP supports the development of healthy, engaged citizens and can help support your organization or your school in strengthening your mentoring program offerings. So our mission is really to work together to strengthen Alberta's capacity to support and enhance mentoring. And our vision is to help young people to thrive through mentoring relationships. We also have a lot of resources and training opportunities on our website, so feel free to check out our Knowledge Hub at albertamentors.ca. And so on to today's webinar. We're so lucky to have Jeff Gray joining us today as our guest speaker from Antyx Arts. Jeff has worked with youth in Calgary and area for over 15 years, having worked with Rocky View School Division, the Mustard Seed, In From the Cold, Boys and Girls Club, Cochrane, Child and Family Services, and Cornerstone Youth Center. Jeff is currently the executive director for Antyx Community Arts Society. Jeff has been the co-chair of the United Way's Council of Champions, as well as Calgary's Plan to End and Prevent Youth Homelessness, Refresh Prevention Committee, and has been the chair of Bow Valley College's Child and Youth Care Counseling Review Board since the program was founded. Having been a keynote speaker at many events on the topic of youth homelessness and prevention, Jeff has done a TEDx talk in 2013 on the topic of expert sharing and was the winner of the Audience Choice Award for his 2017 Fast Pitch with Social Venture Partners. Born and raised in Airdrie, Jeff is a former professional touring musician who can be found playing hockey year-round, kayaking, and enjoying a ride on his motorbike while holding desperately tight to his own feelings of youthfulness. And Jeff brings a humorous, calm, and peaceful persona with a passionate heart for youth and the arts in Calgary. Having been a homeless teen himself, Jeff's fundamental belief in prevention-based programming comes from seeing the need firsthand, and his passion for this work shows. So Jeff will be giving us a presentation on the topic of natural supports and social snacking. And then there will be a Q&A at the end of the session. If you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat. It's pretty informal though, so you can also raise your hand and interrupt us if you wish. But we will address any questions at the end as well during the Q&A session. Jeff also provided his slides as a PDF, so I'll enter those in the chat and you can follow along during the workshop. So thank you so much again for joining us today, Jeff, and I'll pass it on to you to talk to us a little bit about social snacking and natural supports.
That's wonderful. Thank you very much. Yeah, I'm happy to chat about this, and I'll share my screen here so I can get the presentation up. And as you mentioned, everybody will have access to the slides as well, because there's going to be lots of information on there. Most people who are going to interact with this are going to be viewing it in post. So if you're watching this afterwards in the recording and you have some questions, you can always reach out to me. It's just jeff@antyx.org. Nice and simple. Share my presentation for you here. Natural supports is kind of the broader length of what social snacking feeds into. Social snacking is kind of the entry point in order to build some natural supports in a framework sense. A lot of people know random acts of kindness, and that's kind of the closest link to start the understanding what social snacking is. But there's a big difference between the two. Random acts of kindness are joyful and wonderful, and they should always exist, but it's not working towards a longer interaction and building on relationships. It's just a one-off, mostly anonymous interaction. Social snacking is a lot more intentional, and it's not anonymous. It's trying to do the exact opposite, actually. So it could be just some brief, informal, and it's important that it's mutually positive interactions. So it's not just buying coffee for the person behind you in the Tim Hortons line. It's a lot deeper than that. The person may not even recognize what vehicle you're in, may never have seen you. It feels nice, but it doesn't help build a sense of connection in the same way. So social snacking has a bunch of different elements. You're trying to make a place that people feel connected, and you're trying to build a sense of community, where the social snacking is that entry point. It's a start-off space. Although it's still positive in the same way that random acts of kindness are, it has more than a momentary effect. It has something that is an investment to build on. Everybody's aim is to have some belonging, and it's part of our natural needs, our Maslow hierarchy of needs there. This is something that you can be acknowledged that you exist, and you feel valued, and you have a role in your community, and it's building on exchanges of emotional currency. And when we do those sorts of things, you might be interacting with people in your community or any of your programs that aren't in a position to be reciprocating that at that time. But you're depositing in their kind of emotional bank that eventually, maybe one day, they have enough that they'll show up to a community event, or that they'll make some eye contact if that's what they're culturally comfortable with at the dog park or something like that. So those who have the ability to make those connections and investments in some social interactions feel good about it. The goal is both of you feel good, and the hormone that gets released is called oxytocin, and it's kind of the happy, feel good emotion that we get in our brains when we do these connecting interactions. So the long-term goal with this is not just that momentary interaction, but you hope that by investing in a smile and a hello at the dog park turns into, oh, I recognize you from the dog park. I'm going to help with the community cleanup. You're someone I trust. I feel safe. I feel connected in this community that I choose. And it's not always a physical community either. Some people identify that their neighborhood, their community, that they practice social snacking might be an online community or a really specific group or a sport club or something like that. Others, it really is just their physical network. And you're hoping to build this safety net, this groupings of interactions you've had with these social snacks that eventually feed into a natural supportive network. And what that means, if you're unfamiliar, very quite simply, unpaid supports that you've chosen to be in your life. That if you need something, you can give somebody a call. If you're going through something, you have some people there who are checking in on you. These social snackings are those first steps to make a community feel like they're cared about and have people there that recognize them. So some examples to put it into more tangible context. Opening the door for someone, and it's more than just the physical act of allowing somebody entry. The social snacking part comes with some sort of exchange, an audible greeting, a high five, a banter on how the weather was, or hey, you came here last week. What program are you going to, or something like that. Introducing yourself at the dog park, the person you see all the time, getting to know what their dog's name is, use their dog's name next time you see them. It'll feel like, oh, I'm recognized here. I have a role. I better show up the same time next week. And then, our interactions that we have throughout the day that aren't always our choice, but out of necessity, like taking transit. If you have the same, bus driver and you recognize them, let them know, hey, you were my bus driver last week. Good to see you again. My name's Jeff. Have some sort of interaction there that you both feel some sense of belonging and some exchange has occurred. It could be, as I said, online with different groups, as simple as sharing your favorite book or a recipe or something like that. As I'm sure everybody knows, Facebook groups and community groups are not always a positive place. So you could find your own avenue to interact with people in the positive way that you choose, to share your interests. And that's a really important thing, whether it's online or you are signed up for a group, or you go to board games club every Tuesday or something like that. That is a building on the natural supports framework that you have, where it might not be that you call up the person running the Facebook group for help, but you might have connected with somebody and built a friendship, or realized somebody's down the street that if their dog runs away, you recognize their thing and send them a message. It's just feeling interconnected. And then a really important one, introduce yourself at any front desk that you're engaging with. If it's appropriate in the situation and not too strange, you get to know their name and ask some unintrusive questions. So if you're attending a local library often and it's the same front desk person, say, hey, you're the same front desk person that's here every time. My name's Jeff. What's yours? And asking some unintrusive questions. So have you been to the art gallery next door? What's it like? It sounds really good. I'll have to go check it out. And build on that conversation. So next time you come there, you feel like there's some attachment built and there's some relationship that's engaged. And of course, volunteering anywhere. That's an important a way of showing that you're a safe leader in your community. You're invested in it. If people need to chat, you seem like you're a person that would be interested to hear it and care. And then the last one I like to freak people out with kindness. And they might give you this weird look on, why are you being so nice? Or if you have a soccer coach or something like that, your kid is in a program, and you just say the things that we just assume they understand. And I'm really happy you're the coach. That's really great. You volunteered. That's really special. That's a big important thing in our community. They might look at you so strange, but later at night, I hope that they lay in bed and they're like, oh man, that guy was really weird. That was really strange, but he's right. I am really important. Maybe I better invest in some more community stuff. I am an important part of my community. Maybe I better help out in that community cleanup or something like that. So there's social snacking are investments that can have opportunity to grow into larger interactions in your community. But it does base a lot on, as the first word, social. There are some people who are nervous or socially anxious, and finding different ways to interact in your community is so much more broader than just verbal, and it's more inclusive than people who just have verbal. So these are just some examples of that. But there's a really important part to this, where reciprocity is an important aspect, especially when you're volunteering or you're in a position of power or authority. So if you're an organization like mine running programs for kids, there is an element of power dynamics where you have to register. I have to know who's coming. I get to choose when it's occurring. It's not all their choice. So you have to be really mindful of the dynamics that you have, and whenever you're trying to do some social snacking, that it's not they're obligated to speak to you. There has to be just some natural occurrence. We're here together and we're interacting as human beings. So I wanted to share a real quick story about soup kitchens. I used to be the shelter manager at a homeless shelter. That incredible staff that ran our kitchens, but we would have volunteers every single day, which is incredible. They would serve meals for the guests. And I would notice I would eat with the guests every day. Doesn't matter if I brought my lunch or not. Even if I ate already, just to keep interacting with them, I would get in the line, and I would social snack the line, and just eat my food with people. And if they told me to screw off, I would leave. But other than that, I'm talking to anybody that I'm sitting with. But the volunteers, quite often, meaning well and not doing any harm, that's for sure. They're doing something positive. They would have a guest pull up and, do you want the chicken or the beef today? Oh, you want the beef? Oh, I hope you enjoy it. Thanks for coming. And that interaction's over. Then I would come in the line and it's, oh, Jeff, hey, nice shirt. Where'd you get it? Oh, that's really great. I love that. That's a great store. Maybe I'll go there next week. Oh, I'll message you after this. We'll chat. That's wonderful. I'm so glad I saw you, Jeff. Then the next guest would come. Would you like chicken or beef? And I was like really uncomfortable and noticed the interactions, although really positive and kind with all the guests, there was a power imbalance. And then I came there as a staff, and I got a different outcome. It was mutually beneficial. There was some reciprocity there. It's I am your equal. And that's a really important thing to keep in mind when we're doing some social snacking, where if you're an agency, especially that's working with the public, it's hard not to puppeteer and make them feel like you've engineered this too much. But I've been a homeless person, and there are, in my experience working with them as well, majority of them are genuinely appreciative and understanding of your kindness and the being a recipient of someone's charity, but the capacity to show the same sort of compassion and say thank you even is not always their highest priority for the day. But finding a way to interact with people when you have a power dynamic that levels that power dynamic, make it as neutral and just, this is another human being here. I am not in control of this situation. They might not choose, I've rarely met a person that's homeless, that's having to stay at a shelter, choosing that life. So there is an element of, I didn't choose to be here. So acknowledging that this is just a human being in an uncomfortable spot, that I'm not the important one. We are kind of having experience together. It can be really difficult, but you have to try and have some mutual give and take in the relationship that you're engaging in. This one I'll go through fairly quick. One-on-one snacks. Belonging is neat. Everybody likes to belong. That's nice. But there's a difficult interaction that happens if you're only investing social snacks with one person. You're developing relationships with one person. You're feeling like I have a safety net. I have people who care about me. Nothing's going to go wrong because I can always call my one person. They're my best friend, they're my partner, they're my dad, whatever. But this one person, I've invested all my eggs in this one basket. All of a sudden, if something goes wrong and that person's not there anymore, your safety net that you've relied upon and you maybe didn't invest in other interactions is no longer. And it can be really difficult for a lot of people, whether it's a one-to-one snack that they're used to, or maybe they're associated to a paid support, which we all found out during the pandemic got uprooted for a lot of people who didn't have any other social networks and people that they were snacking with. It was discouraged for a while to be out and communicating and connecting with people. So now we're in a world where it's really important that we reinvest and get to know the barista's name at the coffee shop I visit every day, and maybe they'll recognize my order, and I'll feel like it's we're connected in this world. But investing in just one relationship is really, really scary. That codependence dynamic, as soon as it's gone, doesn't matter how great that relationship was. You need to have a network, and that's why feeling in a sense of community broadly is so important. So some community snack elements. I really encourage this for any organization, whether you're a non-for-profit or for-profit, or just anywhere that has an opportunity to provide space for social snacking to occur. Partner with businesses and organizations in your community to provide some volunteers come into your space. You might be a bicycle shop and next door is a bakery, and you're like, well, we have no intersection. Well, you do. You're both in the same community, so why not have a baking day where you tune up bikes for free in the same facility? If you have a meeting room in your building and there's other nonprofits that don't have that asset, that you would love for them to get to know your space, invite them in, let them use your building. And that's kind of the same with the other one too, collaborating with local organizations, different leagues and services and things like that. Quite often it's hard to accept that other people can be experts too. And they should be included in your programming. If I'm running a program for single mothers and I'm noticing a lot of them are new immigrants, I might be an expert on single mothers and how to support them. But I'm not an expert on new immigrants. So instead of me forcing the expert level in there, I better call the expert organization for new immigrants to come join my Tuesday group, and they'll get comfortable and they'll help support them. And then maybe instead of coming to my Tuesday single mothers group, maybe they go to the Wednesday newcomers group at a whole different place if that's their need. But I'm supplying the space for a warm transfer to happen and those relationships to be built that they could go choose if they wish. I don't need to gatekeep interactions. Making community spaces available at low or no cost, same sort of thing. As it says there, I'm a little bit communist in how I think, and the lines on what is public and what is this agency's is a little bit blurred. I run programs at a gym out of a private school. They donate the space. We just had to make sure we had insurance coverage. It's we use the space when their school's not even running. It's just sitting there. We aren't depreciating their asset by using their space. There's no step count for the floor and then it blows up or something like that. So as long as we can work out an arrangement that doesn't cause detriment to each other, us having two organizations trying to meet needs of the community, we allow them to use the space, and then together there's people activating the space, engaging and doing things that they choose by us opening those doors. I'll rip through here a little bit and I'll just go to the end and just mention that I definitely tricked a whole community, and it was for a good reason. I was doing a guidance counselor work out in a rural town in Alberta, and they didn't have any sort of social work agency or no community links type thing. So if you had an issue in this small town, you would go to the library, maybe they have some resources, or you come to the school. And quite often I'd have people who don't even have kids coming to the school asking for resources or help, or I don't have food this week, what do I do? And how not only difficult for us, because that's not our goal, we're working with kids that are in school, but how difficult it must be for them to have to work up the courage to go into a school they don't even have a connection to, just to ask for help. So I said, well, I better start a community resource fair, and I'll donate my time on the weekend and convince the town to let me use their hall for free. Brought all these vendors. Barely anybody showed up, especially none of the people that I regularly saw that I knew needed the help. They were just too embarrassed. They didn't want to be seen by the neighbor as, I need help. I don't have my stuff together, and for whatever reason, avoided it. So I had to really think, like, they're coming to my appointments, filling up my schedule. They're definitely in need. How do I get them these resources linked in a comfortable way? So instead of having resource night, we would have, spaghetti movie night, and we'd be showing Shrek, and we'd be having green spaghetti noodles, and the front door person who stamps your wrist happens to be, wearing a shirt with a banner for the distress center, and the person serving the food runs the food bank in the closest town, and will tell you all about it. And the MC that introduced the movie is crisis counselor at the Schizophrenia Society or something like that. And it worked. People were coming out like crazy. They're engaging. They're having referrals, and it was just creating a community space, but included the town offering the space for free, me donating some of my time, and all those agencies coming together saying, well, this isn't a program we run. This isn't necessarily a mission, but this is going to really help out the community. So let's blur the lines of what's possible, and let's just do it. It was really cool. It ended up working. This one I'll leave for you guys to explore in the handout or the link. But if you're trying to plan some social snacking, you're trying to orchestrate a little bit, there is an ethical line, because you are trying to get people to do things for good without you, but you do need to give them a little bit of support, and you need to pass on some tools. So you really need to figure out who are the community champions. Any parent knows that you could say the same, wonderful, perfect advice your child doesn't listen to, but as somebody that they trust, or they see as a leader in the community, or their best friend, or favorite teacher says the exact same thing, they'll listen. Same as when you're doing social snacking and trying to get a supportive network in your community. You're trying to get community leaders to inspire and lead, so that they can take it over. They shouldn't be people who are attached to a paid service. And just really assessing what are the needs, so you aren't forcing your own. In Calgary, we were able to get a community profile, and we're able to see how many single mothers are there, or how many car thefts there's been in a community. So as a paid service, try to help the community, I would say, oh, those are my two buckets that this community definitely needs to work on. But the community, when you ask them, might say, well, I'm worried about the lighting at the bus stop. I'm not worried about those other things. So they're going to take the lead, and you're going to support them on the bus stops. Hopefully you give them all the tangible skills and all the connections, that if they're dealing with a car is lost or whatever else outside of that range, they have these networks built that they can rely on each other, and not feeling like you've told them what they should care about in their community. That could be a difficult thing. What needs there are in the community. I'll jump past that, and just how we do it at Antyx, how specifically we get social snacking to occur. Our goal is to try and get all the youth that are coming to our programs to detach from our program. So we intentionally run it in places where they could access without us. So libraries, community halls, there's a wonderful art gallery that we run programs at that they can come to. These public spaces that they can grow an attachment to without us. So when we get there, the youth get to tour the building, they get to see it, and then hopefully they're attending it without us. That's an intentional way that we're trying to get social snacking integrated in our community, in our programming. The other thing is we run 10-week programs intentionally with a start and stop point. We don't like Klingons, is kind of what we say. We feel that we fail the youth if we don't have them leaving our program. If they're only getting their needs met by us, that's not a natural support. That's an attachment that we're not looking for. We're trying to be as upfront as possible with them, that we're going to role model and show you all these skills and get your competency up and your tool belt filled, that we would love for you to be independent. So here's a 10-week program. You might, come to the next 10-week program, or maybe the next one, but the goal is that there's a stop to this. It's not a continual program that you age out of. It's a program that you've met your needs, you're connected to a community space, you've met some like-minded friends, and you're connecting without us. So it's tough when you tell a funder, my goal, they might say we need you to have 100 participants and have them for 6 months. I'll be like, well, we had more than 100, but it was 10 weeks, and we did our job so well, they aren't coming back anymore. But that's a success. That's a good thing. We don't want them for long periods of time if they don't need us. And then we openly advertise our intended outcomes. We post all of our programs online in as direct as possible. So example, anti-racism photography project. So right off the bat, those are some big things that I care about: racism or anti-racism, and I care about photography, or I care about one or the other. I'm going to check it out. Or I don't care about that. I'm not going to feel like I'm forced that I have to attend this. This isn't my math class that I have to go to. We let them choose. So when they're coming to the programs, they're already bought in and they're wanting to engage. They've already had an option. And then we just let them know what are the actual outcomes. So come learn how to frame beautiful shots and edit photos on your cell phone to capture your own voice on the current events regarding racism. And then all the 10 weeks are building on skills. To the final 10th week is a showcase of all that you've done in a community space for the community, for your family or friends. The people who work there are going to see this. So we let them know this is the project, and there's no hidden intentions. We're as upfront as possible. And we use art as a therapeutic medium. That's just the vehicle. And we let the kids know, it's great if you love, photography or something like that, but that's just the vehicle to get you to have these deep conversations, practice these social skills, learn how to have these social snacking moments on your own, and talk about big world topics that you can feel engaged and connected to your community. We let them know that is the goal. So it really limits when we tell them up front, if they're just coming for the art aspect and not engaging in the rest. It's our job as a facilitator to really figure out, how do I get you to care about it? And being as upfront as possible really helps to set the tone when you have to have those conversations. And then the other important thing when you're running these sorts of programs and you have an intended outcome in mind, as much as you've been upfront with it, it's your intended outcome. So give it a ballpark. So our lesson plans are a ballpark. You could play within that ballpark. It doesn't have to be a written out script that you have to follow verbatim and nobody can deviate if there's a cool subject matter. We had a program just recently. It was hip hop club. So they're learning how to do DJing, but they wanted to learn about the history and culture of hip hop. So it was history of the oppressed people making a genre. And then in that was the ballpark we had to play with. It shifted to, that park near me needs better lighting at night because I'm too scared to walk home, so I don't ever go to the pool for the public swim nights where all my friends are and all the other people. And maybe I should learn how to make a song that the city can hear so they can know my concern, because I would really love to go swimming. So you set the tone, but be comfortable with the community and participants guiding it to wherever they're needing it. So this is the most important part in any of as an agency trying to coordinate some social snacking. This is how we actually do. Majority of the work is before a kid gets there, how much planning we do. We invite a community member to be a part of the program, somebody that's relevant to the subject, or maybe it's somebody that's not relevant to the subject, but they're the basketball coach, and most of the kids are on the basketball team, or a lot of our kids are identifying with one culture, so we'll bring a leader from that culture. Maybe it's all the kids from one area, and we know that there's a local bakery there that they surely pass by every day. We'll invite the owner of the bakery to come pop in for our program. Having the community member there is really important. Youth are met at the door by the facilitator, but it's not because we just want to control the dynamic. It's so that we can have that transfer of, hey, did you get to know the front desk person? Oh, this is, Angela. She's here every Wednesday. So if you ever are here without me, make sure you say hi to Angela, and she'll tell you what else is going on in this building that has nothing to do with the antics that you could choose to do. Then they're greeted by name with a conversation bridge, and that's the social snacking part. Conversation bridge is so important in any social snacking that you're doing. Same thing if you're introducing yourself to any front desk anywhere, or a bus driver or anything like that. It'll be, hi, Jeff, I'm glad you're here today. Hey, that song you told me about last week, I showed it to my buddy. He loved it. It was so good. Maybe you could show me another song this week so I could show him again, and I'll tell you how that goes. You're letting them know that their involvement with you has longer than that moment. That's why it's different than a random act of kindness. You've built a block. Then in the actual program, we're setting up the facility that we run really intentionally. We're forcing social interactions to happen. So we are somewhat orchestrating it. But our goal as a facilitating agency, not just a member of the public, we're trying to get them practice. We're the training wheels on the bike so that they can go out in the community interactions and the natural supports they have that aren't paid services and take those training wheels off comfortably. So we will force, like, if I know a kid loves the color blue, I'm going to make sure that whatever art supplies we have are mostly blue. And I'm not just going to do that subtly. I'm going to let them know, hey, Jeff, I know you love blue, and I really wanted you to enjoy this program. I took a couple minutes. I grabbed all the blue construction paper. You got it, man. I'm really happy you're here. Or you could do more subtle stuff. I'm using music as my main point of reference, but if there's a kid there that really likes to pick music and he always has great suggestions, I will visibly have a post-it note on the laptop that he knows gets to pick music, saying, Jeff, I'm really happy you're here. You have really great suggestions. How about you lead us off with picking a song? And instantly he feels like this space is for me. They intentionally wanted me to interact. I belong here. I better come next week. It's important that you don't have favoritism in these interactions. So you do have to make sure that everybody is connected. That's why my staff put a lot of time, and they stay up at night making sure that they've done this well, that they've balanced everybody. Because you can have a super outgoing social person, and then the rest of your group, your youth that you're working with, are really quiet. So if you only engage in the one that's really outgoing, all the rest will stay quiet. So you have to have ways that you engage with everybody and have no favoritism, but intentionally setting up these social snacking moments. And then because we advertise all of our program lessons online, we've heard that there's families that will have a conversation before our program, they'll prime it, or afterwards, they're open to it and they have the tools to do it because they saw what we talked about from our lesson plans. And that is like, I'm an emotional dude to begin with, but I've fully cried when I've heard a parent say I had a conversation with my kid about, I don't even remember what it was intergenerational trauma or something, because I knew you guys were going to have that topic today, so I figured I better let them know my thoughts on it. Wow, that's awesome! Like that's yeah, really rewarding when you can do that and have that bridge that extends beyond you. I'll rip through these. I think there's just two more here for time's sake. This is what our lesson plan is. This is what we tell the youth, and we show them this is what their parents have, this is what the kids have. We let them know these are the conversation starters we're going to have. These are the prompts you're going to get throughout the program. These are intended art objectives. These are intended social emotional learnings or 40 developmental assets or whatever deeper therapeutic stuff, and our community focus. So by advertising this, it also holds us accountable. If we're 30 minutes into a 1 hour program and we haven't used all these prompts, the kids will be like, oh, I thought you were going to ask how someone feels if they saw you caring about your physical community or something like that. They'll call you out on it because they're primed for those interactions. So our programs are having these conversations. Have you ever seen someone cleaning up your neighborhood? Well, that's a social snacking dynamic right there, community cleanups. And we're talking about, how does it feel? Why should you do it? Is it important? It's a training ground, or a trial and error space that these kids can work out their thoughts and feelings about social interactions, that they can actively practice more comfortably once they leave our program. This one here is the third week of a 10-week program where they're doing eco art. They're walking around the community using materials they find in their community to make an art project. The second one here, this is the actual rollout of the plan. We had an author come in who lived in the area. They weren't an author on eco art or anything like that, or anything relative. They're just an artist or an author that lived in the community. We invited them to come to the program because they walked the same space that we were gathering all these materials, and we're having these conversations about how does it feel to be seen as a person who cares about your physical community, or how does your neighbor feel when they see that you're investing some time to pick up that garbage or something like that. And we had a community member there, and it was a great dynamic. Maybe they buy their book, maybe they don't. That the person doesn't come for that monetary kind of kickback. It's just a cool way to do it. We even had a cooking program, and we brought in a guy. This was out in Cochrane, runs a bakery, and he didn't want to come and do baking program or anything like that. He wanted to teach knife skills, knife safety skills, and we were awesome. We worked together on a lesson plan, and it had very little to do with the physical safety of it. That was obviously an intended goal, but he wanted to talk to people about why it's important to say hello to customers, and why does he care about getting to learn their name, and why is it important that he knows their favorite order, and why he likes to build community. So bringing somebody in for a need in these lesson plans that translates outside of a program. And then we just have a debrief that actively brings those conversations back in. How could you help your community? Where can you invest yourself in? What should you say to somebody who might rake the leaves on your lawn? How do you make them feel really validated and special? So that we're integrating social snacking learning in our programs that they can practice without us. That's kind of the main goal. And then hopefully they've built enough connections around themselves in their communities that if something goes wrong, they can give somebody a call. They built a deeper connection. Or maybe they don't have a crisis. They just all of a sudden feel, I do care about this community. Maybe I better volunteer, or maybe I better show up. Oh, I see they're having what are those called? Those like community art sales or something like that. Maybe I better go check it out. Or, I've never been in that store, but that guy was at that thing I was at last week. He seems really nice. I better pop into that store. I better go check it out. It just builds some connectivity around us that battles a lot of mental health, low-lying stuff. And if we had a stronger network of all these investments in the emotional currency around us, this framework that we have to be sustainable without a paid service, a lot of people wouldn't need to come to a paid service. They wouldn't need to have a really uncomfortable, undesirable emergency crisis. Maybe they're able to mitigate that by having all these positives around them and actively choosing it. So I believe that was my last slide. I'll stop sharing here, and I can take questions, even though I'm not sure we have people right live to take them. But the biggest portion with all the social snacking, if you're trying to integrate it as a nonprofit or a school or community group, you have a role to play. And even though you are somewhat engineering it and puppeteering these interactions, your role is just like we're trying to do, is build their capacity so they can practice it without you. Run your programs and community spaces that they can go to without you. And we gave up our office spaces because we were like, well, they don't need to come here. We're running our programs in these community spaces. We want them to go to those spaces. We don't want them to be exclusively coming to our program. We want them to feel connected out there. So if you're running programs trying to engage young people in particular, some of them may not have ever thought of going to the library or the pool or whatever rec center, or even public parks. Maybe their parents didn't bring them there and they aren't comfortable. I mean, that's just not a normal thing for a lot of people. But if you are providing the space, you're collaborating with the different community members that they may not interact with on their own, and you're providing those opportunities for connection, and then you're actively teaching people how to connect. You're doing your role as somebody. So yeah, I think social snacking is such an easy, tangible concept. A lot of people already do it, but a big barrier is a lot of people don't intentionally speak to the people around them about how important it is. And I'm happy to freak people out. I'm holding this door open for you because I'm really glad you're here. I don't know who you are, but hopefully I see you next time and hold the door open, so they know I'm trying to engage you. I'm trying to make sure that this is important to her. I'll be as upfront as possible with my internal dialogue on, oh man, I thank you for holding the door. That made me feel really good today. I love when people do that. It makes me feel like I'm welcome here. I will say as much of that as possible. So yeah, building on to the natural supports and the broader scale, social snacking is easy and tangible for everybody.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I think that we have lost a few folks because they had to leave early. But I have a couple questions, or I guess thoughts. Have you noticed, I guess, like a shift in the ease of snacking, or getting folks kind of, I guess, on board since COVID? Because I find like an experience that I've had, I guess, would be relatable to that one-on-one snack where before COVID, I had this like established network of baristas or like massage therapists and people just in your community. And then everything sort of stopped and then everything changed. And I also moved to a different neighborhood, and it feels like my neighbors don't really talk to each other very much. And I'm just relearning all of these new people. And it's a really weird feeling.
Yeah, absolutely. Coming out of COVID, I think going into it before everybody knew it was going to happen, we all thought we had these support networks. I'm doing fine, and not realizing that events could clear them all out, and we're left with a rebuilding once we're able to go back in the community and engage again, and having to relearn how do I want to go back to that same massage place that I was at before? I heard the person that I used to go to all the time isn't even there. So like, what do I even do now? And that's an important thing too. Paid supports are different than paid services. So natural supports are where you're choosing. You choose where you go and get your massage, or where you get your coffee, or where you walk your dog. So those are okay to have those interactions and get your social snacking done, even though that person might be a service provider. They're in your community, and that you're choosing to interact. But yeah, we've seen not just that people don't have a whole lot of network built right now, and they have a large appetite for it. But even though it was just a brief 2 years, whatever it was that we were experiencing the pandemic, a lot of people lost their understanding of, how do I get connected? How do I start a conversation? Where do I go to be involved in something? So it was a reset point for a lot of people without having those skills. So our program saw a large uptick in kids who are really antisocial or didn't have some comfortable social skills. And because we advertised, this is a program where you're going to get to practice those things. We saw a large uptake in programs that kids were wanting social needs met, and just a playground of sorts of how to engage socially, so that they could practice it, because they might have had all these resources shared with them about, here's an asset map of all the resources or shops in your community or whatever, but they didn't have the confidence or communication skills to how do I register? How do I introduce myself? Is it weird if I say, hi, my name's Jeff? Person that's serving me. It grinds my gears when there's services that rush you, and there's one major coffee brand, which I won't name, that they pride themselves on how fast they can get you out, where they don't even give you an opportunity to say, hey, my name's Jeff, my favorite order is this, what's your dog's name, those sorts of things. They rush you, and I'm like, oh, what? Like, you're denying me this great marketing thing for you that I would be attached to your business. But yeah, absolutely, huge uptake in a lot of really lonely people, unfortunately, who weren't experienced that loneliness before, when they had a different network.
Yeah, it's so interesting. I also loved all of the dog park examples because I frequent the dog park and I really think it's the best place to meet people. And I always laugh with like friends and my partner. I'm like, I sometimes cannot remember a human's name, but I know every dog at the dog park. Like that is,
Yeah.
and that's Buddy, and I will never forget your dog's name. It's so true.
And that's an important thing with social snacking is uh, sometimes you'll see people giving you visual cues that they're actively not wanting to engage. An ear pod in, hood up, or just no eye contact. Unless they tell me to leave them alone, I still try to engage with the understanding that maybe they have some trauma, maybe that they just they're needing a threshold of investments before they feel comfortable to open up and trust and care. And I'm just depositing one coin in that bank, and maybe I'll never get to see the results of them opening up and taking their hood off and saying hello, but I'm investing my coin in there, and hopefully it gets enough that they feel they'll maybe next time they're at the dog park, uh, they gave to somebody else because it just felt like a nice place. So it's not always that I'm going to reap the rewards of the interactions, but that is your goal and your hope. That's for sure. Yeah.
Right. So the goal is for it to be mutually beneficial, but sometimes that might not always be the case. And you have to sort of be brave and open to the fact that maybe someone might not want to talk to you. And
Yeah.
just
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
That's such an important thing, and I'm sure you guys know it too. Sometimes when you're working with young people in particular, it could be so embarrassing with the swing and misses of trying to be cool or engage in conversation or say something. I don't know how many times people have said, how are you doing? And I've given the total wrong response, and they just nod along like, I know you got that wrong, but I feel bad that you're uncomfortable and awkward now. And you're gonna have these swing and misses in the community as well. You might hold a door open and try to engage with somebody and say hello, and not realize that they had no idea what you said. Maybe there's a language barrier or something like that, and you look silly. It's going to happen, but it's really important. And this is kind of the time to shine for any extrovert for sure. Taking that lead and investing in these people who aren't as comfortable yet, or may never will be. It's not everybody's deal to just talk to strangers, and that's okay. Social snacking is a lot more than that. That random act of kindness shift could be like my neighbor beside me. I never talk to him. I'd feel weird doing that. Maybe I'm from Toronto and it's not a normal thing to do or something like that. I don't know, but I know that he's needing his lawn mowed and he's a senior citizen. Maybe I better go over there, mow his lawn. I'll go knock on the door. I'll give him a wave and thumbs up, let him know, hey, I got your back here, person I don't really know. I care about you because you're my neighbor. Those are important interactions we can all do and have. So.
That's great. I guess a question too, just about your programming. Does it just operate in Calgary or is this a province-wide um, offering?
Yeah, our program is just in Calgary. A lot of our funding is Calgary based. Me being a rather socialist person, any of our lesson plans or our offerings, even policy manuals, if there's smaller nonprofits out there or community groups that want to get organized, reach out and we'll share everything with you. Um, uh, we run programs in 6 different communities across Calgary, and almost every day of the week we have programs in multiple spots. So libraries, schools, art galleries that are public, different places that we can have youth congregating naturally without us. Um, we had a great example of one time we were scouting out places to go, and there was a fist fight as soon as we got there. And we were talking with the security there, and he said, "Yeah, this kids are here hanging out all the time. I really wish there was something for them to do." And I'm like, "Oh, well, I guess we're running programs here now. Like this is it." Right now we're doing a community mural at a community association that has a bowling alley, and we went in there. It was a time capsule from like the 1970s and 80s, and I know there's no kids coming to this right now, but us doing this community mural project and convincing the community association to let us use their space, these kids now know there's a bowling alley and they've contributed to how it looks, and they're probably going to come back and try it out. Like that's such a cool thing in your community to link people up and pass them over. Yeah.
Awesome. I'm just going to reshare for 1 second as we wrap up our session here. Bear with me. Okay. So thank you again so much, Jeff. That was great. I learned a thing or two, and I'm feeling brave to go out this evening and social snack with my neighbors, whether they're open to it or not. But if anyone watching has enjoyed our session today, you might also be interested in our summit that's happening on October 19th. So it's titled Giving Them Our Best, Youth Mentoring Through Natural Supports. And this event will be taking place in Edmonton, and Jeff will be joining us at our summit again, doing another session. If you want more on natural supports and social snacking, I think it's going to be a great event to attend and quite interactive. We'll also have a morning keynote from Cheryl Whiskey Jack that day, and she'll inspire us and share about the responsibility that we all have in mentoring youth and the powerful ways that mentorship can shape communities. We also will have a youth panel, a school highlight. There'll be a panel discussion on natural supports, and then we'll have a great closing performance by Dallas Arcan Jr. and lots more. So we hope to see you there. If you are interested in attending, you can scan this QR code here. And then if you want to keep up with everything else that we do at AMP, feel free to follow us on our socials, subscribe to our newsletter. It comes out every couple weeks and has resource highlights, community events, and other news. And thank you once again, Jeff, so much for our great presentation today. We hope that you're all walking away with some good new info and strategies on natural supports. So we will stick around for a few minutes. Jeff, if the viewers would like to contact you, how can they reach you?
Yeah, our website is probably the best. They can find all of our program resources, all of our staff contacts, including myself, and that's Antyx, either .ca or .org. Both will get you to the same page, but Antyx. And all of our program lesson plans are on there, so feel free to steal them. That's why they're there. Or reach out to us if you just need some more resources. I didn't start social snacking, that's for sure. And the research has been ongoing with a lot of people, but we've really embraced it, and it's changed our paradigm and how we operate a lot of our programs.